My name is Liz Fust. I'm the founder and executive director of Gathering Strength, Inc., which is a disability-led nonprofit organization in Louisville, Kentucky. We empower people with disabilities to achieve better health, to increase self-sufficiency, and to become more engaged in the community. I have a spinal cord injury myself and use a wheelchair. A few housekeeping details before we get started. Um, this is a webinar, not a Zoom meeting, so you won't be able to unmute yourself or turn your video on. So what we're going to do is take questions through the Q&A. And you should see the Q&A on the menu of your Zoom menu, and we will take questions and we will do some answering of those questions periodically throughout this workshop. You can, if you want to enlarge the interpreter, there's a line you should see on your screen, and you can grab it with your mouse and move it left or right to enlarge either the presentation slides or the interpreter. We have such a large group here, we may not be able to answer everyone's questions. We will do our best to get those questions and answers to you after the meeting. And I'm going to go ahead and introduce our presenter today. His name is David Edwards, and he has been a Certified Work Incentives Coordinator, a CWIC, for 12 years and has served thousands of clients with disabilities. He is the Work Incentives Planning Assistance Director at the Center for Accessible Living, which is the independent living center that serves much of the state of Kentucky, including Louisville. They have offices in Louisville, Murray, and Bowling Green, Kentucky. We are lucky to have David with us. He has a lot of great information to impart right now. So I am going to let him go ahead and get started. And the other thing I do want to say is for those of you who want continuing education units or need a certificate of participation, I will put a link in the chat around 4 o'clock, which goes to a form that you will complete in order to get those certificates. So I'll do that later in the program. All right, let's welcome David Edwards. And David, thanks for doing this for us, and you can take it away.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Fuss. I appreciate that. Thank you for everyone who's participating today. It is an important topic that sometimes community partners or individuals assisting others with disabilities may not see the importance of benefits counseling, which is what WIPA does. And there'll be information on how to find your local WIPA later on in the presentation. I want to thank Ms. Fuss for allowing this presentation today. I felt honored to be asked, and we're going to go ahead and get started. And again, like she said, that we'll be stopping at certain points and answering questions as much as possible. I will give my email address. I know that's dangerous, but I will give my work email address. So if I can't get to your questions, you feel free to email me a question. Just let me know that you attended the seminar at Gathering Strength. To get right started, WIPA, kind of like what we've already said, it's a grant from Social Security. It stands for Work Incentive Planning and Assistance. We assist individuals with disability benefits to determine how wages from employment would affect those benefits. So there are two types of Social Security benefits for persons with disability, and we're going to learn about those. We're going to look at tools that people can use when they're attempting to work, and we'll look at the WIPA program in itself. Our first disability benefit we want to talk about is SSI. Everyone says SSI, supplemental security income. And we want to look at how wages, of course, or work would affect an individual's SSI cash benefit as well as Medicaid. And if I talk too fast, somebody let me know. I can get too quick, and I don't want to do that today. I want to first give you assistance in differentiating between SSI and Title II benefits, which we'll talk about here shortly, which is SSDI. A lot of acronyms today. SSDI, CDB, DWB, et cetera, et cetera. But the differentiation here is that there are no work quarters, no work credits for individuals who are receiving SSI. In other words, they didn't earn enough quarters to get Social Security disability insurance. And there's a set amount of SSI, if you're unfamiliar, and that amount this year is what's called the federal benefit rate, and it is $943 a month. By the end of this presentation on SSI, we'll know the basic effect of earned income. This is not an attempt to analyze everybody's situation. We will look at work incentives and how they can be applied to reduce countable earned income. We'll be discussing what all that means. And then my favorite work incentive of all, what's called 1619B, extended Medicaid. So we get started. SSI, cash benefits for individuals who are 65 older, who are blind or who have a disability and have little income and few resources. It is administered by the Social Security Office, and it's paid out of federal tax dollars. In the state of Kentucky, SSI recipients are automatically eligible for Medicaid when they receive SSI because it is a 1634 state. Other states can be different. You should look at your state and see what type of Medicaid state that it is. The federal monthly, as we already stated, SSI payment at this year is $943 a month. One thing to know about Social Security, or rather state supplemental income, is that they are needs-based. They are needs-based. So what that means for an individual receiving SSI is that any income they receive can affect their cash payment amount. In other words, they would get less than $943. And income is any item an individual receives in cash or what's called in kind, such as free rent. You may find someone who's not getting their full SSI benefit because they are living perhaps with a parent, in kind support maintenance, they call that, and they do a 1/3 reduction of the SSI cash benefit. In other words, in kind that can be used to meet his or her need for shelter. Food is no longer considered as income. They changed that this year. So you have a heads up on that. They don't count that this year. So what does that mean in practical use? If someone were to receive, say, a $500 gift card to Kroger or to any place that will provide food, they would not have to report that. It does not count, if you would. Okay. Resources are still limited to $2,000 in total. The individual cannot have more than $2,000 in the bank. Otherwise, they could become determined ineligible for SSI and Medicaid. So we'll look at different kinds of income. We have earned income, which is just as it sounds, royalties, honorary, even income from a sheltered workshop because it's wages, and of course, self-employment and regular wages. Here's something that, sometimes we don't think about: unearned income. So unearned income is income that you didn't make, yourself. And this could be someone who is dually entitled. They may have both SSDI and SSI, so that SSDI would lower their SSI payment. Pensions, if you're getting a payment from the state, and yes, unemployment checks count as income, but they're unearned, but you have to consider that. Interest income and dividends. We did discuss in-kind income and deemed income. Now, this is a complicated income, and really a person would need a benefits counselor to go over that, and also the Social Security office for further discussion on that. But what is deemed income? It's income that is deemed to the SSI recipient from either their spouse or their parent who are living with them. So in other words, they are counting a deemed income. And again, that can be complicated. So it's good to have a benefits counselor for that, as well as talking to your representative at the Social Security office. How is income counted? So Social Security doesn't really count all the income when determining how much the SSI check will be each month. So you say, well, I grossed $1,000, so Social Security sees $1,000, but that's not correct. There are things that they do. There are deductions, and that's how they determine how much the cash benefit SSI would be. We're kind of jumping the gun a little bit, but we're going to see a worksheet that will explain it pretty well. What I want to add here is, how do you determine your gross income? All this is based on gross income. So that's before taxes. And if we want to get very specific, if you want to do it on your own, you would take the weekly earnings, multiply it by the wage per hour. So that's your weekly earnings. And then multiply your weekly earnings by 4.33. So I'm going to say that again. Your weekly hours times your hourly wage times 4.33. Normally, you and I at home, we would go times 4 weeks in a month, but Social Security uses 4.33. So how? Basic exclusions. There are 2 exclusions that will be used in determining how much you're actually making for Social Security's purpose. They have a general income exclusion of $20 and an earned income exclusion of $65. I'll make a side note here. Sometimes folk are misinformed. Perhaps someone is not as trained, and they would tell someone on SSI that they could make $85, and that's it. And where they get that is they're adding these exclusions. And of course, that's wrong. You can make quite a bit of money. Then they count $1 for every 2 after they exclude these dollar amounts. And again, we're going to see a worksheet real quickly. I'd rather we look at the worksheet. Here we go. Okay, so John's gross income was $623.50. And so the first thing they will do is they will subtract 20 bucks. So you have $603.50. Then they subtract the $65. And so that leaves $538.50. But we're not done. Then they divide by 2. And so their countable, notice that phrase, countable earned income is $269.25. So even though they're grossing $623.50, Social Security is only going to count $269.25. They take the countable earned income, subtract it from the cash benefit rate, which is $943, and they come up with the SSI payment. So it's adjusted. So the SSI cash benefit when you are working is adjusted every month according to the gross income you make. And so here we have a new cash payment of $673. So someone says, I can't work, they'll take my check. Well, that's not true. They may reduce your check, but in the long term, overall, you make more per month. Obviously, $1,297 is a whole lot more than 623 or 943. So the caveat of that is you have to report your earnings consistently every month. This needs to be communicated clearly with everyone receiving SSI, because unfortunately, they may go to a Social Security office. They may be receiving 2 benefits, and they're not told to report every month for their SSI. And they become what's called overpayment. And that's just something we don't want anyone who's out there exploring working to deal with an overpayment. So we report every month by the end of the 6th. So like next month, November 6th, by the end of workday, so by 4 o'clock, November 6th, I have to report my earnings for October. And there is a lag time. You have to give Social Security a chance to catch up. But if there's any discrepancies in the pay, that would be reimbursed, if you would. There are some work incentive deductions that can also reduce the countable earned income. Remember that figure we had in the previous one. They went through this whole calculation, subtract 20, subtracted 65, divided by 2, and then we had our countable income. Well, there's other deductions that an individual can use that would help actually make the check from SSI bigger. And one of those is the student earned income exclusion. Now, this is really an exciting news for students, and that the age range from that is up to 22 years old, and they do have to be what's considered a full-time class load, but they have a work incentive just for them where they can exclude earnings before the countable income is determined. And then there is also the impairment related work expense. And this is expenses that the individual has to pay out of pocket related to disability that helps them work. So it's all about work. Notice it says work expenses. We're going to look at those here in just a second. And then there's blind work expenses, specifically the state supplemental security income, that's SSI. And those are just for SSI. Someone who's receiving the other benefit we're going to talk about would not be able to use this particular work incentive. And then there is the plan to achieve self-support, which we'll discuss. So let's look at the student earned income exclusion. It applies to a person, as we said, under age 22 and regularly attending school. And look at this figure. Social Security will exclude earnings up to $2,290 each month. So if some student was earning, let's say $2,245, that's totally excluded because they're under that benchmark. What am I talking about? I'm talking about that calculation sheet. So it would be not included so that the individual would still get their in total SSI check. They would get their total $943. This is up to annually $9,230. So once they work over the annual, then their income would, you wouldn't be able to exclude it. They've reached the limit there. They're reminding us here in this slide that this is an annually commitment. In other words, next year it'll be a different number. So these numbers aren't permanent. Everything hopefully goes up as they've been in the past. So great. We have an example here. She earned $1,247. There's a spot on the calculation sheet. So Social Security is going to say she's made $1,247 as a student. And so we're not going to count it. And if you look, she receives her full SSI cash benefit, $943. Leaves her $2,190. It's a wonderful work incentive. And I'm trying to pull you in to help advertise it because unfortunately parents are unaware of it. This is not an automatic deduction. You have to apply for it. And so, we need to get the word out that there's the student earned income exclusion. And that could really make a difference in someone's schooling and being able to afford textbooks and all kinds of good stuff. Okay. Enables SSI recipients to recover some of the cost of expenses incurred as a result of their disability to support their work. So now we're talking about impairment-related work expense. Deducting the cost of impairment-related items and services from monthly gross wages, and it'll decrease the countable earned income and allows the SSI recipient to retain more in SSI cash payments. So again, it's an incentive. It's an incentive. So they're going to get more in their cash benefit. Okay. We're going to go through here. They have directly related to work. Individuals, let me give you an example. If I take transit, I have a disability, but I take a regular bus to my job. I cannot use that as an impairment-related work expense. But if I have to take a special transportation because I cannot drive and I cannot take a regular bus, I can deduct that. That would be an impairment-related work expense. If I have a prescription and I pay a copay, And if I don't have that prescription, then I'm not going to be able to function on my job. I can get that approved as an impairment related work expense. And notice the last sentence on this slide, it says expense must be reasonable. And so, what you're dealing with when you deal with asking for an impairment related work expense is it has to be reasonable to the person you're talking to. You have to actually apply for these at the Social Security office, and you have to have receipts. Okay. Something else I want to put here and to have you something to think about. And you're dealing with a client, and they just had to buy a power chair or had to modify their vehicle. Obviously, they need that for their job. So they could take the receipt of that, and that's a whole lot of money. It's very expensive. But they could break that down into like 6 months. So for 6 months, they would have the total cost of that being reduced. I hope I'm making sense. So if the total cost was $2,500, and Social Security says, yeah, that's an impairment related work expense. And I say, I would like to divide that out over 8 months. And they say, sure. And so, however much that is divided by 8, and that would be the impairment related work expense. It's all about getting the approval from the Social Security Administration. So, when we advise clients about the impairment related work experience, we emphasize has to be involved with work and disability, and it has to be a reasonable expense. Ms. Fuss, I believe we said we would take questions at this point.
Sure. There are some questions. Let's see. One that just came through was doesn't the Social Security Administration count payments for a healthcare enrollment at a job for vision and dental as IRWI?
So the question is, they're taking money from my paycheck and putting it in this for my dental.
Right. That's what the question appears to be, that you're paying payments for vision and dental insurance.
Well, we have to need the service in order to work. It must be paid by us. It meets that one. Must be paid within a month that they're working. It meets that one. But is it directly related to work? Now, no, it's worth a try because we're saving Medicaid some money. Or you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah.
There's money being saved for somebody. So I think it would be worth a try.
And it's the kind of thing, David, where you submit expenses that you think are IRWI, and your Social Security person you're dealing with will say yes or no to it, correct?
That's correct. Yes. Um, but you have to look at the criteria. Does it meet it?
Yeah.
So
And so another question was, is the 4.3, for the month, is that for Title II, I guess SSDI, or also SSI? Is it just an SSI thing or SSDI?
that's how Social Security determines gross
Okay,
income.
got it. Um,
It's good for the individual with SSI to know this gross income because there's going to be 2 months of the year wherein they're going to have a third pay period within the month, and that will obviously decrease the SSI cash benefit a little less than normal out of the other 10.
yeah, Yeah. So we do have more questions, but we can't get to all of them, and we're a third of the way through, if that gives you an idea of where you are in your
Oh, it's
presentation.
okay.
All right, great.
Okay.
Let's
We'll
go.
move, we'll move on to we're still on the early. I want to go ahead and go into the blind work expense. Available to SSI recipients who receive benefits based on statutorily blindness. Blind work expenses do not need to be related to any impairment. They need to be related expenses to, or rather related expenses to working. It allows exclusion of any other work-related items that are paid out of pocket and not reimbursed. And again, this work incentive is only for those in the SSI benefit program. Here's some examples: service animal expenses, transportation to and from work. Look, they can deduct their income taxes, Social Security taxes, visual and sensory aids, even translation of materials into Braille, professional association fees, and union dues. I wanted to show the calculation sheet again here, and I want you to see the difference in where it's at as compared to the impairment-related work expense. So this individual earned $723. They did the deductions. There's a remainder. Then they divided by 2, and then they subtracted the blind work expense. Now, if you can remember, impairment-related work expense is before they divide by 2. So an individual with blindness will be able to deduct and receive quite a bit more SSI cash benefit. And so even though the individual earns $723, Social Security is only going to count $69, given a total earnings of $1,568. So very important. If you work with someone who is blind and trying to help them get a job, let them know about these great deductions that they can use. Plan to achieve self-support. There's been a lot of conversation about the pass. They still approve passes. My predecessor, every pass she assisted the client with was approved. That's a wonderful thing. But what is a pass? It's a savings plan. You are working, so now you have income. You can put it in a pass, so you're saving for something that's going to help you get a job or allow you to do your job better. So it has to be around a work goal. Many times, individuals want to write a pass so they can get a car. Those are very rarely approved because it really has to be about a work goal. So, example of past expenses is education or training. So it's a good option also for students here to use a pass. Job coaching or other support services. An individual may not have waiver services, so they may need some assistance on the job. Transportation, job-related items, equipment needed to start a business, anything that can apply to an occupational goal. That's the purpose of a PASS. Again, PASS stands for Plan to Achieve Self-Support. There are many PASS success stories, everything from I remember one with a lady who used a PASS to help purchase tools for her truck. She became a locksmith traveling locksmith. Another individual did a pass for a food truck. I thought that was pretty cool. So anything that involves an occupational goal can be approved as a pass. Just some requirements. Have feasible, specific occupational goal. We kind of mentioned the locksmith and the chef. Identify the expenses necessary to achieve the goal. So you're setting up how much and when you're going to pay it. Have an earnings goal that will decrease dependence on public benefits. Identify interval steps, milestones. They're called milestones for progress towards the goal. If it was school, you finished the first year. You received a certification. Have a definable time frame of when the pass will begin and end. Got to have a time frame. You'll be approached. People want to do a pass, but they have got to sit down and they have to figure the plan. That's why it's called Plan to Achieve Self-Support. WIPA can assist. CWICs, as we're called, we can assist individuals in writing a pass plan, and we would do that. So they're just showing you here in this slide where the pass plan would be. We showed you that after they divide by 2, the blind work expense is subtracted, right? Well, after here, the pass expenditures are took out after it's divided by 2. And so even though the individual is grossing $800 a month, Social Security is not counting it because the countable earned income has been put in the pass. And so in truth, the individual grossing $800 is actually making $1,743 a month. But we do know that part of that is going into the plan, the pass. Okay, this is my favorite work incentive for individuals on state supplement. Most people think they lose their Medicaid once the cash benefit stops. In the 1634 state, and Kentucky is one of them, that is not true. We have a Medicaid threshold. And this work incentive is called, as you see here on the slide, 1619B. 1619B. And what does it say, really? What does it mean? In the state of Kentucky, you can earn up to, ready? $45,921 and maintain your Medicaid. Most of the rest of that slide is discussing that you have to maintain your eligibility in order to use it. But in the state of Kentucky, and they jumped it really big. I'm very proud of Kentucky for doing this. But your annual income up to $45,921, and you would keep your Medicaid. So just look up your state's Medicaid threshold. Maybe type in 1619B in your browser for your state, and your threshold should pop up. Okay. Here's how to find your local WIPA project. It's choose work, ssa.gov. Choose work, ssa.gov. Okay. We even give you a little more information, meet your employment team. And so you'll go down there and you will see various employment partners. We'll go through here. Choose work, ssa.gov. Okay. Now, if you are directly involved with the client, you can have them call the toll-free number, which is here. And this toll-free number sends them directly to the Ticket to Work hotline, helpline, whatever you want to call it. And they will refer them to the WIPA project nearest for your consumer. So that's a good phone number to have. Okay, here's another break for questions.
Great. Here are a couple. Should IRWIs be submitted monthly? And is the only way to do it by going in person to the office?
There's always the rule of thumb until they change it. It's best to go face to face with your receipts to the office. If they tell you different, great. And they'll tell you how to do it. Do you have to do this every month? No, you're going to show your receipts and you're going to say, okay, this is an impairment related work expense. And that should be deducted once you've reported. Can there be a snag? Sure. Just remind them that you have an impairment related work expense approved. But yeah, you shouldn't have to go every month to do that.
Okay, let's see. While working through the SSI gross payment worksheet, this is a technical one. It might not be fair. We might have to do it later. Let's see. When looking at the base SSI rates, are we using the individual's monthly cash payment amount or the FBR and value of 1/3 amount? Do you know?
I do. But if you're not a benefits counselor, I would not use this worksheet as an analysis tool because you shouldn't be truthfully analyzing. When you wouldn't use $943 is if they're already an overpayment. So that would be down on the lower box. And or they're in a 1/3 reduction rule, which again is that in-kind support maintenance that we discussed. If someone was living with their parents, they may have a 1/3 reduction rule. And so obviously their amount is not the amount of 943. So there would be differentiations on that.
Sorry about that. Another question was, can the fee from a WIP-C be used as an IRWI?
The fee from a what?
A WIP-C, that just the acronym, I guess, a work incentives program counselor.
Oh, well, the WIPA is free.
Okay.
The WIPA is free. Your WIPA CWICs are free.
And you showed us the link, and it will be in the presentation slides, which I send out, where people can find the program that serves their area. It's in your presentation slides.
Yeah. And also, if they can't have success or something, they can email me and I'll look that up for them. I don't want
Okay. All right. Well, we do have more questions than we can take. I apologize for not being able to take them on, but I want to make sure we get on to the other subject matter. And
okay, let's change gears here. We are now going to talk about Title II disability benefits, the concept of what's called substantial gainful activity, the factors that Social Security considers when making an SGA determination. And we have some work incentives that can be applied to ease the transition from dependence on benefits to greater independence from working. There are 3 different types. There is the Social Security disability insurance benefits. Okay, that's the individual has earned enough quarters for that benefit. There is the childhood disability benefits. This is where the individual does not have enough quarters and is receiving the benefit off a parent's record. And disabled widow benefits, the same. They did not have enough quarters, but they are drawing off their deceased spouse. Um, Title II disability benefits are a form of insurance. They are not means tested. Resources and most forms of unearned income have no effect on these benefits. So what do you mean by that? If you inherit $100,000 tomorrow, I hope you do, and you're on SSDI, your SSDI will not be affected. And the amount of disability benefit is payable to you is determined on your work record. So SSDI payments are not the same across the board, unlike SSI. Understanding the SGA concept, the substantial gainful activity guideline on countable earned income. There's that phrase again, countable earned income. Applies at initial application and forever onwards. When an individual received SSDI, CDB, or DWB, they had to prove they were unable to perform substantial gainful activity. That's why this phrase is so important. SGA is an assessment of the value of a person's work effort. This value may or may not be the same as what the person was actually paid or earned. Now, if you've ever worked in this field, most people want to ask, how much can I make without affecting my benefits? And so you're in a quandary because it doesn't necessarily work that way for amount of earnings. SGA determination is a decision by the Social Security Office. It's not always what she's brought here, black and white. It's an annually set amount against which value of work is compared. SGA determinations generally can't be made in real time. Work performed in a given year is compared to the SGA guideline for the SGA in that year. Obviously, we're looking at something kind of complicated. Only Social Security personnel can make determinations whether something is substantial gainful activity. A pattern of work valued above the annual guideline is likely to be considered SGA. A pattern of work valued under the guideline is unlikely to be considered SGA. So we have a guideline this year of countable income of $1,550 a month. Okay. But we also have work incentives. The individual's wages represent not only pay for their work effort, but also represents help from someone else or higher pay than would be received by a non-disabled employee for the same work. So a subsidy is a type of incentive, and it can be a deduction on the gross earnings. Examples of a subsidy: extra assistance, reduced production rate, frequent breaks, fewer job duties than coworkers in a similar job, or other accommodations. I do want to read one of these examples. Tracy is working as a dishwasher at Brown. It takes Tracy a little longer to wash the dishes. They've given a percent that she's about at 85%. The hotel staff are not concerned about that. She shows up for every shift. So instead of, letting her go, they keep her and they provide her. That means they're providing her with a subsidy of 15%. So if she makes $14 an hour, then it's $2.10 per hour. So part of her pay is a subsidy. And Social Security will require forms to be filled out by the employer. And so that's how they verify the information being given to them. But that would be a deduction before they determined what the actual income is. Some people, we've already discussed impairment-related work expenses. So this applies also to Title II disability benefits. You have say you're receiving, well, you're taking, here in Louisville, we have TARP 3. It's a special transportation for individuals that cannot drive due to disability. And there's a fee for it, there and back, 30 days. Keep the receipts, take them to the Social Security office and say, this is how much I pay every month in order to get back and forth to work. And they put it in the system. And so they subtract that amount. So if the individual was making $1,600 a month and they had $100 in TARP 3 expense, they take that to Social Security office. They would subtract it from his gross. Perhaps it's 100. And so then now his countable income is 1,500, even though he's grossing 1,600. So that would be an example of an impairment related work expense. I know that's a little bit repetitive, but I wanted to bring that out, that it also applies to Social Security disability insurance. Okay. Again, we've already went through this list. Reasonable costs necessary in order to work, paid out of your pocket. Okay. Just a caveat here that Social Security makes the determination. They make the determination. You do want to go in there with the request in writing. You have to have your receipts. These are just some lists of fears. I mean, an individual is not trying to hurt their financial situation. They're trying to better themselves. So we need to alleviate the fears. It's a lot better now. But I would tell you that back when I started, there were so many rumors that it was hard for us to press through those rumors for the individual to let them see the truth. But with the advent of the smartphone and easy access, some of that has gone away. Your benefits won't stop immediately if you're working at SGA level. And there's safety net if it doesn't. So this is what an individual with SSDI and the others, this is what they're looking at as their timeline. They call them phases and their work incentives. So the trial work period, it's a total of 9 months. Within a trial work period month, the individual can gross whatever, and they would still maintain their cash disability benefit. Okay. So an individual starts work November 1st, and they landed a good job and is paying $3,000 a month. They would still keep their Social Security disability cash check. The trial work period, I use the expression or phrase total of, because they don't have to be done in consecutive. So if someone starts to work and they got sick after 2 months, that doesn't mean their trial work period is over. Whatever months they don't use, they can use at a later time. And then it says here, after 5 years, if they haven't used any, the ones they did use would roll back. One thing to remember is $1,110. So if an individual grosses less than $1,110, they did not use a trial work period month. So each month is its own boss. That's how I put it over the phone. Some things I'm giving to you is what I would say to a client. So there are months maybe they gross that, maybe they don't. So it's important for them to keep track of their gross earnings per month. And your CWIC would provide a calendar. It looks like a calendar, and it would show how that works. Okay. I wanted to talk about this one for sure before I cut anything out. This one is really relieves the anxiety for the individual receiving disability benefit. It is a 3-year safety net. So the trial work period is over. There is another work incentive, which is 3 years long. And it's a safety net. And we'll get back to SGA in just a second. But if the individual is working at $3,000 a month, obviously that's more than $1,550. So their cash benefit would eventually be suspended. We're going to talk about that in just a second. So this is a 3-year safety net. And what does that mean? If you can remember when they used to do the circus and they had the tightrope walkers, when they practiced, they had a big net underneath them so that if they were to fall, and the net would catch them. So the extended period of eligibility says, hey, you worked your way, your cash benefit is suspended, and now you're reporting to us that you can't work at that level. We'll restart your check the following month. There's no paperwork. The individual goes to the Social Security office and informs them they are no longer working at a level that would be considered SGA. So the person that got the $3,000 a month job would go and say, I'm no longer working. And they would restart the check the following month. This is the safety net. And this is 3 years long. So that gives an individual plenty of time to find out, if they're going to be able to work full time. Okay. Okay, we have to talk about this. So our individual, we're going to say, who's making $3,000 a month, what happens after the trial work period? What really happens? And so the 10th month, remember we're counting months, the 10th month, Social Security will want to know, are you performing substantial gainful activity? And so the countable income, he has no deductions. So he's grossing $3,000 a month. So that's more than $1,550. But they're going to give him his cash benefit on the 10th month. And they're going to give him his cash benefit the next 2 months. This is called the grace period. So even though this gentleman is working and earning $3,000 a month, we said he started November 1st. Well, he would have his cash benefit all the way up to November the following year, an entire 12-month time frame where he would continue to receive his cash disability benefit. This is called the cessation and grace period. Okay. But they're going to ask, what happens after 12 months? Goes back to that key term that we used when we discussed that safety net. The cash benefit is suspended. It is not lost. It's suspended. And that the slide here represents the fact that it's 9 trial work period months plus 3 grace period months. Now, some folks may have worked a couple of months, split between 2 years. So an individual can't say, oh, you'll keep your benefit for 12 months because they may have used 2 trial work period months in the past. So that's why it's very important, that we use general terms and not try to analyze for someone. Get your WIPA benefits counselor and get them involved. Okay, this would be that last box you've seen in the phase. And this is called expedited reinstatement. So our guy who made $3,000 a month and his benefit was suspended. Well, what happens after the safety net? Well, he's officially stopped receiving Social Security disability. Still has his Medicare. Medicare stays with him for 93 months from the day he started that job, 93 months out. That's, if I'm not mistaken, 7 years plus. So, but he's officially worked his way off Social Security disability insurance. But the following year has to stop due to his disability. What does he have left? And he has expedited reinstatement. Now, this is a wonderful thing because there are three positives about expedited reinstatement. I'm going to be real quick. One, he goes to Social Security office, says, look, I can no longer work. I need to file expedited reinstatement. And so the first benefit of this is they do it exactly as it sounds, expeditiously. So they're working expeditiously to reinstate his benefit. And he gets a cash benefit while they're trying to reinstate him. If they don't reinstate him, he does not have to pay that provision back. He said, okay, that's two. What's the third? Once he's reinstated, if for the next 2 years he doesn't work at a substantial gainful activity level, he gets a brand new set of work incentives. Trial work period, the extended period of eligibility, etc. So expedited reinstatement is pretty good. It is available for up to 5 years after that extended period of eligibility, and he had worked his way off benefits. I hope that was as clear as I could make it. Very important. Okay. Finally, we just mentioned that it's called the extended period of Medicare coverage for at least 93 months after the end of the trial work period. So if someone is just doing well and just staying with the above SGA level earnings, they'll keep that Medicare all the way out. In case you do not know, you can have Medicare and employer insurance. So be aware of that. Sometimes our clients do not know that they can have both. They think they'll have to get rid of their Medicare, but that's not true. Okay, there's that toll-free number again. You can send your client to that number and they will refer them to a WIPA project. Also, if you want to look yourself, choose workssa.gov and you can find the WIPA in your area. I say in your area because normally there could be 2 to 3 projects within a state. So that's it.
Okay, David, there are a number of questions. And one thing I just wanted to clarify from a question I asked earlier about when you uh, submit IRWI to Social Security. You said it did not have to be submitted monthly. However, you do tell Social Security monthly about your income. Is that correct?
Okay. With Social Security, with the state,
SSI, sorry,
yeah,
SSI.
SSI, you have to report your earnings every month.
Got it. Okay, so here's another
What
question.
they're going to do is they're
Oh,
going to plug in the IRWI in their system.
got it.
Okay.
Uh,
Sorry to cut you off there.
Yep, nope. If if after the grace period, back to SSDI, sorry.
Sure. Hey, that's
If
all right. Love it.
if after the grace period and the earnings go down, will the benefits continue through the 3-year EPE?
Okay. The grace period is the 3 years.
Okay,
So after that, and they go down, then you would probably want to file for expedited reinstatement because you've worked your way off benefits.
got it. So let's see. This is a
Well, that's,
question.
I'm sorry,
Sorry, go ahead.
that has to be due to disability that the earnings are less.
Got it.
That I'm assuming that's what they were saying.
Right, right. So you start work, you're making some money, but then you find because of your disability, you have to sort of lessen your work and make less money.
And it's after the EPE, which
Yeah.
means you worked your way off. So yeah, you'd have to file expedited reinstatement.
Um, is there, this one just came in, is there any incentive for working more than 60 months, like 75 months, than a changing condition?
The 60 months is the total number of months for when the expedited reinstatement is available.
Got it.
If the individual continues, our guy making 3,000 a month, if he made 3,000 a month for 8 years, and on the ninth year, he would probably have to refile for disability.
Okay. Here's another one. It was about that 1110 figure. You said 1,000 is the $1,110 gross earned or gross countable?
Okay. There is no such phrase as gross earned. It's countable earned income. So gross income. So it's based on gross income. So that $1,110 is gross income.
Okay, and just a clarifying question just came through. So the SGA, the substantial gainful activity, only applies to SSDI, right?
That is correct. In the state of Kentucky alone, you can earn up to $45,929 and keep your Medicaid.
Got it.
You would not have a cash benefit for that. I didn't talk about break even point, but at that level of earnings, obviously your cash benefit would be at zero, but you're still technically on SSI and you keep your Medicaid.
Okay, next question. Oh, do you have another section after this? Or is this?
This we can end here.
Okay, all right. So let me ask some more questions. Um, an SSDI recipient is able to earn 1550 or under and not roll into a trial period. Can you stay under 1550 indefinitely?
Okay. um, Here's the thing. It's your earning goal. Are you trying to work your way off benefits? If you are not trying to work your way off benefits, the countable earned income limit is 1,500. So you cannot gross 1,550 or more. It
Okay,
does that during the trial work period, it doesn't matter what you're making. So we were given two numbers. We were given a threshold that determines whether or not we use a trial work period month. That is $1,110 gross. The second number we received is after the trial work period, are we performing substantial gainful activity? That's countable earned income of 1,550.
got it. And I I was reading another question. But that changes every year, doesn't it?
That is correct. I'm hoping it goes up, up, up.
And
Um,
so that was another question about when the cutoffs or the amounts will be released for next year. When does SSA usually put them out there?
uh, Towards the end of our year, so I would not be able to even guess right now what it would be next year
Yeah,
because they bumped it up a little more than what they did the previous year. So if you remember right, everyone got a cost of living allowance, which was exceptionally more than what they normally did.
I see. That consequently or similarly, the substantial gainful activity limit was bumped up a little more.
I believe that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what can I do for a client that has been terminated on SSI due to not sending in paperwork for eligibility, but clearly has a severe disability and has no guardian? Will there be a reconsideration?
Okay, if they are on SSI and they did not file the necessary paperwork, then I would be the advocate, not me personally, not WIPA, but as someone working with them, I would be the advocate and I would do everything I could. Maybe they contact their local protection and advocacy and tell exactly what's going on. That because the person didn't have the assistance that's needed, that this occurred. And
Yeah.
that does happen.
And that's a good point there, David. Most states have a Department of Protection and Advocacy. It's a state level agency. Kentucky has one. You could probably Google, whatever your state is and protection and advocacy, and it would probably come up for your state. Do bonuses and holiday pay count during the trial work period as income?
Remember, during the trial work period, um, it doesn't matter what you earn. But if your question is after the trial work period, would a bonus affect the SGA decision? So I'm making 1,500 a month and my trial work period is over, but I'm under SGA, but then I get this bonus. Yes, bonuses count as earned income.
All right. Um, I hope I didn't just ask this, but with Title II, with SSA, will SSA, Social Security Administration, calculate your earnings from the first of the month to the last day of the month, or is it different? That is, she says, or he, I understood that Social Security should only count the time you're actually working for that month. Am I wrong in thinking that?
Okay, so you're not wrong. So it's really good, and I want to give this answer because sometimes it's befuddled through language. With Title II disability, the earnings are counted within a calendar month. Okay. With SSI, the earnings are considered when they're paid. So the calendar month, even though there's an extra pay period, would not affect for the Title II disability benefit. But someone on SSI, we mentioned that earlier, that extra pay period would be counted within that month. So when they reported their earnings, obviously their SSI cash benefit would be even further reduced.
Okay. So one thing I want to make sure that I am giving, I put a link in the chat for a form that people who want certificates of participation can click on and answer, a few questions, and then they'll uh, get the form. I mean, they'll get their links for the certificate. So I put it in the chat. A couple of people have said it didn't open. It may be because I had the form open, so I have closed the form. I apologize for that. I hope the other possibility is that your email system, your computer system, that you have at work, won't let you open the form with that link. So I think if you can't open that form, email me and I'll just email it to you in another way and we'll try it that way. Or you may want to try it from your home computer. Everybody is worried about bad actors and nefarious links, and it may be that your system is just not letting you open a link that may look fishy. It's not. I promise you it goes to the right thing. So, so let me just ask uh, one more question, maybe two more questions. Um, oh, shoot. Sorry. I started looking at the form and I lost my ah, oh, someone suggested that every state has a protection and advocacy, and you can go to ndm.org to find yours. Thanks for that nice um, short NDRN. Sorry, I'm going to cut and paste this so I don't say it wrong into the chat. So it's people can click on it. So I'm going to do that right now. I think this will work. Well, it didn't. You can copy and paste that into a URL. Let me ask this. If a person is in his EPE and always staying below substantial gainful activity, what would happen after the 3 years? Do they just continue the EPE indefinitely?
That's a very good question. The extended period of eligibility automatically starts after the last trial work period month is used, even if that person is no longer working. And it does not extend. So it's only 3 years. And I know that doesn't sound like that's a good thing, but that's how it works. So after 3 years, whether they're working or not, it's over. There is no extension.
Got it. David, you mentioned you were willing to give out your email address.
I am DED.
Here, let me write it in the chat if I can get this darn thing out of the way. DEDWARDS, right?
Yeah,
At calkey.org.
that's correct. Just we didn't go over WIPA, but just know that your WIPA counselor will write a written report for your client um, that they can use and refer to as long as they want. And the benefits counselor will hang around. I had people that I've talked to 2 years ago that still call me, say, "Hey, I've switched jobs. What's it look like now?" Et cetera, et cetera. So we're here for the long term.
David, one more question just came through. You may understand it better than I. It says, does it start after 9 months or cessation and grace months? I'm not sure what that means.
That's good. Yeah, that is good. But yeah, EPE starts, the extended period of eligibility does start after the ninth month, the same month that the cessation month and grace period are occurring. So yeah.
Great. Okay. So uh, why don't we go ahead and stop there? Wait a minute, let me check one more. I highlighted questions that were sort of common questions, and I just want to make sure since we have a little time. Oh, here it was. Uh, can you submit your IRWE, or it says you can submit IRWE through my Social Security account, correct?
Uh, we've been informed, always have been, that your first option is to go personally to the Social Security office. I realize that that can be a difficult thing to do. So what you need to do is don't call the national number, but call your individual Social Security office and ask them that question.
Okay.
Because Social Security has to set you up for reporting on the My Social Security account. You have to be set up. They have to have your employer's EIN, and plus you have to have them to know to take it information from that account. So it has to be set up. It's not just something that you can do on your own.
Got it. And David, was there a gathering strength slide after this? I just want to tell people, I want to thank folks for coming, and that gathering strength is maybe all the way at the end.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm going there.
and we do a lot of free um, online activities for people with disabilities and their family members and caregivers, a lot of exercise, a lot of stress reduction, educational classes. So if you felt like you were willing to share our information or some information that you may find from me in emails with folks with disabilities who you serve, that would be great. We do it for free. I raise donations to be able to do this for people with disabilities. So anyhow, thanks everybody. I don't see any more questions. Let me make sure. Um, Great. Okay, I will send out the presentation slides and I will try to be better about getting the Q&A, questions and answers, back to you in a timely fashion because we could not get to every single question, David. Believe it or not, there were more. So I thank the David Edwards for his time today, our ASL interpreters as well, and our
Oh, yeah.
captioner. And we hope you have a great rest of your afternoon. Thanks, everybody.